So I have been keeping tabs of lots of questions, and there are many, and we will do our best to try and get through some of them. And so some of the first ones I had obviously were for Michael, which I wrote down, which was just a few questions about which drug you actually used in your sessions at the trial, and what the sessions were like, whether they were guided, was it just one dose or was it a repeated dose? So there's sort of more technical things, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, there was two doses. There was a 10 milligram dose. It's psilocybin, by the way. It was a 10 milligram dose and then a 25 milligram dose. And it worked in completely the opposite way that they expected. The 10 milligram dose is where I had my insight, the recovery, as it were. And the 25 milligram one, which, they kept saying it's going to be twice as strong and, prepare yourself.
Twice as good.
Wear your seatbelt, all this kind of thing. It didn't have much of an effect.
Wow.
The reason for that, I think, and I'm sure they think as well, is because it was only a week between one and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've modified the trial now so that I think it's 2 weeks or maybe even 3.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the science behind that, but I was really disappointed that my 20 I was so looking forward to it, and it was just sort of little glimpses here and there, of some nice things. And sometimes I was just sat in the, just waiting. In terms of it being guided, no, absolutely not. They just, they explained what was going to happen, just for me to go with the flow, as it were. To woke me up, well, not woke me up, but they sat me up every hour to check my blood pressure and these kind of medical things. But they never tried to influence it in any way. They said try not to talk too much, because unfortunately that is one of the things that happens quite a lot. And I did find myself talking quite a bit. But yeah, no guidance at all. I don't think that would have been fair in any respect. They're trying to sort of study, without any kind of influence as to what's happening. Music obviously plays a part. I think there's some sort of design behind that, to trigger certain emotions. But certainly no sort of, talking guidance, as it were.
Okay. And actually, really, I suppose a question for both of you that's come up is, what do you think the impact of having therapy, kind of conventional therapy, before your experience with psychedelics? Do you think it's something that actually, although it didn't treat your condition properly at the time, might have helped then when you experienced the psychedelic therapy? Or do you think psychedelic therapy would be just as effective even if you'd had no previous experience with conventional therapy?
Well, I would say, that all therapies before then would just sort of feel good. They would say nice things and offer nice support, but I always felt like, within a week I would just be back to where I was, kind of thing. It's lovely to have somebody to talk to and kind of share all your sort of deepest thoughts with. But I didn't feel like it was, like a friend who you could go to weeks afterwards and pick up the conversation. I was all, they said you're going to have 6 sessions maximum, that there was no kind of permanence to it. So I don't think it helped with the psychedelic side of things. I mean, don't get me wrong, that in the trial, that previous to you taking the psychedelic, they do talk to you about, like a therapy session in a way. They don't offer advice, they just listen. And with it being, I think it was the first trial in the UK, they were still sort of tweaking the edges a bit. They weren't quite, certain things had to be talked about later, and little hiccups here and there. I had such a long come down. They weren't prepared for that for a start. I was still sort of, I don't know I can't even think of the technical, off my face, basically. About 5 hours later, they sat me in a cafe on my own and, just have something to eat. And I spotted there was all these roses in vases. So I'm picking all of these roses out the vase, took them out, started dishing them out to the nurses, and
Oh.
but it was still lovely, absolutely lovely. You know, they were very accommodating with the sort of weirdness around that. But
Good.
yeah,
You'd hope.
yeah.
And Mark, do you, I mean, the same, or do you want to answer the same question about?
Sure.
But
arguably, I might never have broken through my pain if I hadn't gone to the jungle, because it didn't matter how good the therapists were, and I've been treated by some amazing people. They didn't know, and I didn't know what was actually at the root of my problem, the root of my fear and hatred and rage. So isn't it extraordinary that without ayahuasca, I may still be out there. I may be dead by now. I've almost killed myself twice. The second time was off the cliffs of Beachy Head on the south coast of England, and it took a chaplain and a policeman to talk me off those. And so would I have survived? Would I be trying it again? And maybe, quite likely, actually, looking at my history, probably. So the therapy before definitely got me open. It helped me recognize the fact I had a problem, which is which is a big half of the problem. If you can't recognize that something's wrong, you ain't going to go looking for a solution. And I've been in and out of treatment centers and in and out of therapists' rooms for well over a decade. And I would come back from a certain workshop, a certain week, or a week in America or there, and I would think, okay, great, I'm done, got that, licked it, and got the postcard, and I've learned a whole bunch more. And yeah, I had learned a whole bunch more. But I was talking the talk. I was not walking the walk. I was not practicing the serenity prayer. I was not accepting what I couldn't control. And then I would go back into the next relationship, and it was literally a matter of time before the same old writing was on the wall. I started to feel frightened when someone got too close to me. I started to get angry. And then the poor women who tried to love me, they had no chance, because I didn't know me, had no clue who I was. So I would say therapy was essential to set the stage. And would I send any of my clients today straight off to the jungle after the first meeting with them? No, I wouldn't. I think it's a hell of a thing to do. You do need a foundation of self-acceptance and some self-compassion, because what you're likely to discover in the jungle, if you go that far or wherever you do it, it's not going to be easy. So you need a foundation support network in place before and after, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. So I'll read out some of the others. I've written them down because it got very long in the chat. Trying to keep track of them. So there was a question here about when you're at the retreats, actually, Mark, for you, what happens on the nights in between when you're taking ayahuasca? Is there some kind of talking therapy there, and is there any kind of integration and support, I suppose, once you get home afterwards?
Absolutely. Well, that, fun enough, is why I went to this place. Gabor Mate, if anyone hasn't ever heard of him, type Gabor Mate into YouTube or Google, you'll find reams. He's done extraordinary work. So he's such a trustworthy figure. I took his recommendation at face value. The Temple of the Way of Light, I think, has been going over a decade now, and it's actually not that I suppose it's a good thing. You need to have an award for most safe place. They've won it several years running, which is kind of funny in its own way. But they are safe. The shaman are very authentic. When you're there, you drink, let's say you drink on a Monday night, on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, and through all the day, you have yoga. There's only about 2 hours in the day when there's nothing scheduled. Every other hour of the day, there is something scheduled, whether it's a lecture on the jungle, a lecture on ayahuasca, whether it's yoga, whether it's a jungle walk to explore the canopy, to explore the wildlife. You can go for a swim in the local swimming pool, which is a pond, not a swimming pool. So there's always something to do. You are immensely well taken care of. You have group get-togethers. So the 24 of you sit around in the main hut, probably every other day. In fact, often every day. So you have incredible opportunity for support. If they see you falling apart, they will take you aside and they will give you specific help. I had one night which was so dark. Following the day, I needed physical help, let alone emotional help. I never, ever felt afraid I never felt unsafe in that place. So yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it's essential to go somewhere where they take care of you and which has a good reputation for you. In other words, anyone can fly into Lima and go down the back streets of Lima, and you can be drinking ayahuasca in half an hour. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, it's possible. So to do it properly, absolutely find a place that plans, look at the timetable, go on the Temple of the Way of Light website, you'll see what they offer on a daily basis. So yeah, it was very, very busy schedule. Some of the things you can't do because you're far too wiped out by the journeying, but you're very, very well taken care of between ceremonies.
Amazing. That's very good to hear. And I think it is an important message as well to get out there, is that it does need to be done properly. I've met people who've just done ayahuasca with someone they met in somewhere, and it tends not to end so well, I think.
Yeah.
And so Michael, there's also a question for you about sort of what things from your experience do you use anything from your experience on psilocybin that you draw on in day-to-day life if you are feeling maybe having kind of slightly darker moments?
I mean, it's going to sound unusual. I can only describe how it works when I get to those places, because sort of the pre-session, if you like, my concern was that, it just felt like the pointlessness of it all. There was no point to anything. There was no ultimate point to anything. Everything was just sort of for its own sake. That's how it felt like. There was no real, purpose. And within the session, because I felt like I'd left my body, I'd gone to some kind of place. I don't know how to describe it. That there was, as I've mentioned, it was a kind of I hate everything. Just sounds so cliched, but I'll try to describe it as best I can. It felt like a kind of afterlife, or another existence. I don't know what else to call it. That this sort of thing that we're doing now is a game. It's a sort of an exam of sorts. That's the sort of message that I got. It's not, that you have to do certain things in life to get extra brownie points, wherever that is. It's that although it's fun, it's an exam, it's a game. It's not really the real. The real is what I experienced. So when I get to my dark moments now, that helps, because I think, well, this is just temporary. It's a transient. It's not worth getting hung up about, because there's better things to come. And no matter how much you might sort of worry about, there's just people passed away recently that I've known, and it's sad, obviously, but it wouldn't break me up as much as it did before, because I get a bit jealous, really, because I know they're going somewhere great, and I just wanted to see more of that in my session. It was a lovely experience. It was. I have a hard time describing it, but it felt more real than anything I've ever experienced in my life, and it sort of put a bigger perspective on things. So that's what helped me generally during my sort of darker months. And I know it's not scientific, the afterlife, and all this kind of thing. So I tried to sort of keep the talk about that to a minimum, if you like. But it was definitely there. Definitely experienced it, and it didn't feel like a hallucination or anything like that. It was absolutely real. Can't put it in any better words than that, really.
No, well, I mean, it's amazing to hear. I mean, it's a very common thing. I mean, there's just so much about it, and Mark's experience, there's so much that we cannot explain. And I'm going to ask you both one more question. I'm so sorry, there are so many amazing questions, and we're just not going to get through them.
Can I just, before you do, can I just thank Mark as well? I just wanted to thank Mark for his wonderful talk. It really, there's so many things in there that I recognise, and well done, Mark.
Thank you.
So there's a few questions I think that come up from various people, and one is for both of you, which is asking about, I think, nature connectedness and whether you felt more connected to nature afterwards, and I suppose maybe more broadly the world. And then there's also things coming up, I think, about whether it's something you would consider doing again, and what you think healthcare professionals here need to be doing? I know there's 3 huge questions. We can definitely overrun by sort of 5 minutes because we've got a 15-minute comfort break. So if everyone's happy, I from the amount of questions coming in, I think everyone is happy. So if we could go for another 10 minutes, maybe talking about some of those things. I don't know who wants to go.
Well, I'll just go briefly if you like.
Go for it, Michael.
Connected to nature, absolutely. You know, every chance I get, I'm out with my camera on the North Yorkshire moors.
Oh.
I can't get. I mean, I think there's about 780 photographs I've taken or something. You know, I just can't get enough. Basically, yes, absolutely, I do feel closer to nature. You know, that's a wonderful thing. So, what was the other question?
Very good question. Whether you think it's something, I think experiencing psychedelics again, whether you think in the future you might need to do it again, and then I suppose what GPs and health practitioners and things could do to help support patients better or direct them.
GPs and practitioners definitely should be prepared to learn. And when I tried to discuss it with my GP, he was quite dismissive about it. He was quite, you know, he was quite pleased to see the result. But when I tried to explain about it, he just, well, you know, let them deal with it. As long as you sort it, you know.
Fine.
Right.
Nice.
It wasn't particularly, you know, I thought he'd show more interest in it. So I think there should, because of the amount of people with depression, there should show a lot more, without a doubt. Would I do it again? Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Good.
Short and sweet. I'll pass you over to Mark now.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. Nature. When I was in the jungle, I took my camera with me and I spent many an hour photographing the jungle. When I came back, and bearing in mind you've got no phone, no iPad, nothing which is pretty unusual these days for 3 weeks. When I got back into Iquitos town, it was like I was listening to a band at 110 decibels all the time. It was awful. It was such a shock to come back into normal life. That was some years ago now. Today, I absolutely know it has helped me through lockdowns, because I find myself at immense peace just being out in my garden. I hear the birds. I moved out of London 18 months ago to a lovely country house here, and I now just love it. Why I didn't move out 10 years ago is beyond me. So yes, absolutely. I feel, a lot of us in the camp use the analogy of the what's the crazy film with Pandora? What's the scientific film that James Cameron's famous for?
Avatar.
Sorry?
Popping up in the chat. Avatar.
Avatar, thank you. Yeah. A lot of us are drawing analogy when we were there, because we all felt such a connection to the jungle. You couldn't avoid it. And of course, the whole point of Avatar is to advertise the beauty of our planet and stop messing it up. So absolutely, I'm very hyper aware of that today. Would I do it again? Absolutely, I'd do it again. I've even considered it. In fact, I was actually genuinely considering it before the first lockdown. Why? Today, if I get a chance to go back and the time feels right, it'll be for a very different reason. I went there to explore the pain I knew I had, because it had become so clear to me and unavoidable in my life. And I thought, well, maybe this will finally answer the questions I don't even know how to ask. So yes, but today, if I went back, this is going to sound really corny and cliched, I would be going back to explore my heart, my soul, and love. So I wouldn't be asking the jungle to show me the pain that I can't remember receiving, because I've done that and I'm at peace with that. I would use it today to look further into me as a human being, my interconnectedness with other human beings, with the world, with the jungle, and how to help me do my job better, which is to help men heal and stop doing what I used to do. So yes, I would approach it from a very different perspective today, but I would love to do it again. It's an amazing place to go. And in terms of, don't get me on my high horse about GPs and the medicine industry, I can tell you straight away, stop prescribing bloody pills. Because when you put a chemical into someone's body which shuts certain parts of your brain down or supposedly helps you handle it, what you're actually doing is suppressing the very pain you need to address. So I get really passionately angry hopefully healthily angry when I read of the billions of dollars big pharma pour into suppressing pain, when in fact a bloody good therapist, or hey, guess what, a trip to the Amazon jungle, I think could do in 3 weeks what most doctors couldn't do in 10 years.
Yeah.
So they need educating. So one word answer, education is what the whole medical industry needs.
Absolutely, and that's what we're here for.
There we are. To be a part of it.